This is the Red Podcast.
This is episode number 75. If you need more traffic to your website, guest posting and getting your content published on other sites is a great way to do it. Laurel and I disagree on the best way to go about it. Which way will work best for you? Stay tuned to find out on this episode of the Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
I was feeling pretty good about the videos that we've done for Project X. The last episode of Red Podcast, we were talking all about that. But I woke up yesterday, and there's like a full-on film crew all up and down our street. There's cops. We couldn't even park on the street.
It was crazy. They were filming something 2 doors down from us, and they had wardrobes and vans and trucks and equipment, and they had the police officer.
So here's the irony of it, though. I'm going to bet, I haven't seen their video yet, and I know it took all day and about 80 people and 3 wardrobe trucks.
And lots of children.
But I think our video is going to be better.
Why do you think that, David?
Because I was involved.
There it is. David was involved, and it's solid gold.
Yeah, everything I touch is gold. So Project X coming soon. This is the Red Podcast. Blah, blah, bling, bling, blah. You've already heard that, right?
I'm just looking at you like
just
you're
phoning it in today.
You're nuts.
No, I never phoned it in. And you know why I never phoned it in?
Why?
Because my broadcasting idol, Mr. Rogers.
Did he never phone it in?
Never phoned it in. We've had the option, and a lot of people do this. We could just press a button on a machine, say, this is the Red Podcast, and do whatever.
Why don't we do that?
We could, but Mr. Rogers never did it, so therefore I'm not doing it. He always did it live, always sang the song live.
Wow, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, Fred Rogers was the man. You know, Fred Rogers, there's a lot of stuff about him. You know this whole thing about the VCR? They were trying to decide, and when I say they, I mean like Congress or somebody, trying to decide if this whole VCR thing should be illegal. They shouldn't let people videotape. Rogers went up in there, and he said, look, sometimes people work, and the people that I serve, they work, and they're not able to view Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when it comes on. So why don't we let them tape it, and they can watch it whenever they want to? So when you think about the impact that that has had on broadcasting, including podcasting, where you can time shift everything, a lot of that has to do with Fred Rogers. So in honor of him, this is the Red Podcast. Red stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. We help you build an audience, sell more products, and make more money. How do we do it, Laurel?
Personality marketing.
We do. And it's not just the personality of you, although we'll help you with that too. It's the personality of your product. We bring it to the forefront. And if you want to become famous within your industry and beyond, if you want your product to be well known, this is the podcast for you. We're just a couple days from launching Project X.
It's exciting.
It's exciting because we're out there really doing it. We're not just talking about it. That's why you can trust us.
I feel like I've been in a hole the last several months.
You
like
have.
a hermit.
You skipped out on me last week.
I know. And I had my one fan that wanted me to come back.
Yeah, right?
So shout out to you.
Yeah. Said, David, that was okay, but bring Laurel back. So here she is. Today we are talking about guest post, getting your content published. And Laurel knows a lot about that. She's launched a few blogs, and this is one of the techniques that she has used to build traffic to those blogs. So let's dive in. If you need traffic on your business website, guest posting is a great way to do it. I want to start with the foundation. This is something that Laurel and I disagree on. I say that it helps to be somebody. And what I mean by that is be an expert, be famous, have a book, maybe be a podcast host. The more of those things that you have in place, the more likely you are to get your post posted.
Let me tell you why I disagree with that, David. I think for some websites, that's going to be important to be somebody. Maybe if you want to post on an expert site or some high-end site, maybe that's important. But for most of the guest posting sites out there that I've found, They don't really care who you are as long as you write a good article that they think is a good fit for their audience. So that's what I've really noticed is good article, good headline, things we're going to talk about today.
In the end, I agree with you. I think that good content is the foundation of the foundation. But at the same time, it's tougher and tougher to get really high-quality guest posts on high-traffic blogs. And I think if you can have something such as, I host this podcast, or I wrote this book, or I'm famous, to add to the good content, it helps.
I think it can give you an edge, but if your writing sucks, then it's not really going to matter.
If your writing
who
sucks,
you are.
there's no hope for you.
Another part of your foundation is you want to have a purpose for guest posting. You don't want to be sending out guest posts willy-nilly that don't relate to your topic and don't relate to your business, unless you just really like writing and doing that and that's your thing. But have a purpose. Why are you putting stuff out there? Is it to sign people up for your mailing list? Is it to get more coaching clients, sell more products? And plan everything around that. So think about that ahead of time.
You've done a lot of guest posting when you've launched sites, before you've actually had traffic to your own sites. This is how you got the traffic.
I would say guest posting has been one of the most effective ways that I've gotten traffic to my website, and good quality traffic, because I've been picking the right places to guest post on, which is what we're going to talk about.
So let's dive into that. Where to post, I think you need to go to those sites that everybody is talking about. If you're looking for traffic, you don't want to post your stuff on something where nobody's going to. And if you can find the hot site, that's where you want to be.
How do you tell, David, if it's a popular site or not? Is it just because people are talking about it?
I think you can look at Alexa rank. And if you don't have the Alexa plugin for your web browser, that's helpful. But yeah, a lot of times it is going to be, are people talking about it? Because Alexa, sometimes that's not going to help depending on the niche that you're in. If nobody has the Alexa plugin, it doesn't register with Alexa. In a lot of niches, let's say you're a knitter, well, knitting ladies probably don't install that plugin. Marketing people, yes.
I would say Alexa ranking is a place to start. I would look at the site's LinkedIn, which you can also get from the Alexa data. So even if it doesn't have a great Alexa rating, it might have a lot of sites linking in, which is something you want to look at to see the popularity of people pointing their traffic towards this blog. Also, I like to look at social shares. You know, everyone has those buttons where people can share the different articles on the blog. Look at those. How many shares do those have? And how many people are engaging on the blog? So that gives you an idea of who's talking about it, if it's popular or not.
I want to explain social shares because that's a generic term basically to say, yeah, somebody's retweeting this or sending the link out via Twitter. Somebody's posting it on Facebook.
Exactly.
Top Google results, I'm always going to go to that because Google's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Google is going to let you know if the site is actually worth anything because they've got their algorithm that does that automatically. So if a site is listed in the top of Google, that's usually a good sign that it's worth sending a guest post to.
Also, authority sites are going to be great to post on. That's going to be your entrepreneur.com, Forbes.com, HuffingtonPost.com, things like that that give you a lot of credibility when your name is on there.
And that's the reason I feel that it helps to be an author, a podcast host. Those guys, sometimes they'll take anybody if the content is good, but at the same time, they really want those high-level people because Forbes, how long has Forbes been around? 100 years?
Mm-hmm.
A long time. And they're not going to just let anybody write for them. Although,
well, they might.
Yeah, they're letting a lot of people write for them now.
I would say overall, look at where your ideal clients are going. I would say it's better to find a smaller blog to post on that is catering just to your ideal clients than posting on something bigger that's going to reach all kinds of people. So that goes back to having a purpose for guest posting. What is your purpose? What are you trying to communicate to people? What are you trying to get them to do? So think about that as well.
I believe that it's possible to have your content on just about any site. If your content is good enough, even if somebody doesn't normally accept guest posts for his blog, he's going to be open to it. But with that said, you can search for guest post in quotes or guest post guidelines in quotes, and a lot of people will come up. With that said, a great way to find out if a blog is open to accepting guest posts, you can search for guest post in quotes along with your niche, or guest post guidelines along with your niche, and that will bring up a lot of blogs that you can go directly to start your guest posting strategy.
What I use is called the ultimate list of blogs that accept guest post. It's honestly the first thing that came up when I was Googling where to guest post. And we're going to put that in the show notes for you. And it breaks down all these different sites that you can guest post on based on their category. So it's a great place to start if you have no idea where to guest post.
Something else you can search for is guest contributor, again in quotes, or write for us. Add your niche to either one of those search engine queries and more will come up. Guest contributor, that's what Huffington Post lists you at. How do you define what is a good site, Laurel? You talked about the ultimate list of blogs that accept guest posts. How do you know which is a good site?
Well, we talked about it earlier about the Alexa rankings, sites linking in, social shares that you described in more detail in comments. Aside from that, the thing you want to look at is the blog in your niche? Are your ideal clients or customers going to be reading your article? Because if they're not, it's not going to be really helpful for you or your business.
I think a blog has to be high quality. You can tell those blogs that are more or less just content farms, and they have a bunch of ads on them. Nobody's really going to them. They're hoping that they're just picking up traffic via search engines. You want to be in a high quality blog because you're being associated with that blog. If it looks like they're selling a bunch of stuff that you feel isn't of value or wouldn't be of value to the same people who are going to be reading your article, maybe it's better to skip them. Guest post blogs are not all created equal.
Very true. But you know what I do, David, to find the best guest post sites?
Ask.
I ask people. That's exactly what I do. I have my mastermind group, and some of those guys are in similar niches to me, and I ask, hey, where have you had the most success guest posting and gotten the most traffic to your site and gotten the most signups and things like that? And those people can do the research for you, and you just have to ask them.
Yeah, and you can kind of dig in to your social media network. Facebook, a lot of times when somebody is featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, you mentioned Forbes, Huffington Post, you can go to those people that you know, and there are people, I'm sure, within your network that are writing for those sites. Find out how they do those things, and they'll be able to turn you on to other sites. Because a lot of times, something like Forbes, that comes from another site that's more easy for you to get to. And if Forbes syndicates that first site, that's a good way into Forbes.
In doing all this, it's really paramount that you provide high quality content. You have to have original ideas, you have to have a great title, and you're going to have to follow the rules that each different guest posting site lays out for you, because they're all going to be different. They're all going to want different links of articles and different topics and things like that. Follow those rules. Pay attention to those, because following them is what's going to help you get on that site easily and quickly.
Let's dive into that a little bit. I want to talk about being on the receiving end of guest posts, because having done that myself, looking at this from the other side of things, there's so much junk that comes through. People don't follow the rules. Yesterday, on one of my blogs, I had 3 guest post submissions, all of them from Lagos, Nigeria.
Wow.
Not a bad place, but this guy wasn't even submitting, really. He just wanted to hire me. A lot of times these posts, these submissions, it's people that haven't read anything about what the form they're filling out is for. Even if they are submitting content, a lot of times it's just contact requests because you can't get through to the person the other way. It's very frustrating when you're actually on the receiving end of guest posts, so much so that I know a lot of people that don't accept guest posts. That's why I say you should go direct to people. Don't just look for forms. But if you are going through a form, make it easy on yourself, and you'll do them a favor, and you'll stand out simply by following the rules.
Also, don't be afraid to put your personality into it. That's a lot of what we're talking about on this podcast. But how sick are you, David, of just reading these list of top ways to get more traffic on Google,
or top podcasts,
top healthy foods for November, whatever it is. Yeah. Those lists have no personality, and you want to submit something that your ideal client or customer would actually connect with you and not just what you're saying.
And everybody knows how the game is played on those top lists. It's somebody that is trying to get in good with people, or it's somebody that's connected, or somebody that just wants an easy article to do. Nobody really pays attention to these lists, like the top entrepreneurs of 2014 and the top people to follow on Twitter. It's just arbitrary, and you could get that from your friends as easily as you could get it from some generic journalist.
So if you do that, put personality into it, make it more interesting. You want someone to read this article and want to read more of your articles.
Well, that's why I'm going back to the be famous, be somebody, be an expert, be an author, be a podcast host. That's going to help your content be consumed exponentially, regardless of whether it's a guest post, a podcast, a book, your own blog. Put some personality into it. We don't need any more dry, basic content. That stuff can be hired out on Odesk very, very easily. And I think a lot of it is, or else it's just really, really boring.
I want to talk about the byline that you put at the end as well, because that's really important. And I've seen people do it wrong so many times. You'll have a great article, you'll get accepted to a blog to guest post on, and then you have this really bad byline. And what you need in your byline is a great call to action. You want to have one link in there. Don't give people options. Have one link probably to your sign-up form on your website, and say something like, to download my free ebook on how to get rich in 30 days, click here. Don't just say, to learn more about me, here's my blog, and here's my book on Amazon, and here's my podcast. Don't give them options.
Send them to one place. And when Laurel says byline, it's basically a bio.
Exactly.
It lets people who are reading your article know who you are and why they should listen to you.
Exactly. So think about what you want your people to do after they read your article, because it's not learn more about you. That's not enticing.
So, for example, a byline for Laurel would be, Laurel is the president of Project X. Visit projectx-web.biz for more information on how to blank, blank, benefit blank.
Exactly.
I think I just created a perfect byline for you.
I don't know, but we'll work on it.
How do you close the deal when you're doing guest posts? You've done a lot of these, a lot more than I have. Let's talk about closing the deal.
First, you want to develop a relationship with the site owner.
Well, first way I would do that is to reach out via Twitter. If you can't reach out via Twitter, you're not getting any response, find where they are and go to them live. That's the best way. Events, conferences, boot camps, buy their stuff is another good way. Get in with them any way that you can. But yeah, Twitter, responding to their stuff, retweeting it, making comments on Facebook. That's a great way just to let them know that you exist. And then once you have sort of a semi-relationship with them, that's when you go in and say, hey, I've got some content that might work for your audience.
I think that depends on the blog. Again, I think when I've done guest posting and use the ultimate list of blogs that accept guest posts that we'll have in the show notes, I haven't had to develop a relationship with any of the site owners to get my post on there. But I think if you're going for maybe a blog that doesn't accept guest post, or a more specific blog of a guru or something like that, then you might want to follow. Then I definitely say to follow that strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to revisit. We talked about it a little bit earlier. My strategy when it comes to guest posts is I pick the places where I want my content to be. Then I go to those places, not necessarily the places that accept guest posts, although I've done it both ways. Laurel, when she was just looking to build traffic at the very, very beginning of the last couple sites that she's done, she went to places that accepted guest posts because that is the best way to get volume. And I think it works.
It does. So what I would do is just send a good pitch letter. And I'd send them my article already finished, and I'd send them examples of places I had also posted on, so they'd see that I'm not a newbie. It was social proof that other sites liked my content, liked what I had to say, so that was my social proof. And reach out to them, show them in that email and that inquiry that I have followed their rules, said, this is a 500-word article on this. I think it'll really connect with your audience. I think people will like it because it's similar to this other post that you had on there that did really well and really connected with people. So get in there, show them that you've read their rules, followed their rules, and that you are familiar with what they do in their blog.
And if there are no rules, if you're just reaching out to somebody, rather than overwhelm them with an article, what I usually do, I agree with you on the pitching, but what I do is a big idea, give them a title, maybe give them a few sentences of what the article is going to be about. Hey, I can do 500 words. I can do 1,000 words. Let me know what you're comfortable with. Let them have a little bit more say. The article isn't even done. Sometimes they're not going to go for it, but if that's the case, I can just say next, go on to the next guy and find somebody who will, because that happens a lot.
It helps to have that social proof element if you're going to take that route. If you're on the Huffington Post and Forbes and all these other top quality sites and you go to somebody else, that's your social proof right there. You're more likely to cut through the noise.
You've got a lot of Twitter followers, you've got a lot of podcast listeners, a lot of interaction on Facebook. That's the same thing, because you can actually send people to somebody else's site and they're more likely to accept your writing when you have traffic that comes along with it.
Make note that it does take these blog owners a while to get back with you. This process is rarely instantaneous. You send stuff out. I've had stuff that I've sent out inquiries, sent out my posts that I wanted to have on a blog, and it took maybe 6 weeks for them to get back with me. So something that I do is I track everything. I have an Excel spreadsheet for everything in my life, and this is one of them. So I write the title of the guest post, and I write who I've submitted it to, and just keep record of that, because what you don't want to send out is duplicate content to different people, because you will get slapped on the wrist for that.
Just kind of summarize my philosophy on this. I would say focus on the quality. Go for the big blogs. You can have one post that'll get you 100 times more traffic than 10 other posts that you do. But also know that a numbers game does factor into this. Laurel and I, we've done both ends of the spectrum. If you're just looking for links in, if you're just looking to get your writing out there, there's some great things that you can find on the ultimate guest post list. On the other hand, if you're just looking for one-offs, I would say go to these people individually, maybe a mix of both. Either way, you're going to win. Guest posting certainly is a way to increase your credibility and get your message out there, and also bring people in to your site. If you have questions or comments, we are online at redpodcast.com. There you'll be able to reach out to me, reach out to Laurel. We'd love to hear from you. Love your questions, your comments, episode ideas. We'd love to hear those too. If you like what we're doing here on Red Podcast, you can help us out by telling a friend. Also, if you get the show via iTunes, search for Real Entrepreneur Development. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, because that will help us to come up more frequently in the iTunes results. More people will find us, and we'll build a bigger, real entrepreneur development community. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.